Today we're going to be building a Harry Potter style magic wand with a shocking twist. Guys, I love Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter so much. I've read all the books, I've watched all the movies, and just a fan all around. And something that I've been wanting to build for a long time is a magic wand that actually will deliver a small electric shock. Now, I don't want anything that's going to truly incapacitate or injure someone, but I did want something that's sort of a prank. You can just touch someone with it, press a button, and they get zapped a little bit. So here's what we're going to be doing. We've got these gag shocking pens. If you've never seen one of these before, here's how they work. It's pretty simple. There is a functioning pen to it, but it looks like it's going to be a click pen. And so you give it to someone with the pen not extended. They try and click it, and when they do, it zaps them. The body of the pen and the top here are conductive, and when you press down on the top, it connects all of the wires inside and it delivers a small buzz. It's not something that's going to hurt because it's intended as a joke. It's just startling when it suddenly buzzes your thumb instead of just extending the pen at the bottom. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all of the electronic guts out of this pen, change things up a little bit so we have a button that turns it on and off and some leads at the front of the wand. Hopefully we'll end up with a wand with a shock. Here's the basic idea. We'll use a couple of dowels and the inside parts of a shocking gag pen to build a wand that can deliver a tiny electric shock to your friends. Along with the dowels and the shocking pens that we're gonna take all of the insides out, we've got a few things that we're gonna add in. First, I picked up a set of these other batteries. I grabbed these at Harbor Freight. This whole pack was about $4. It's a lot of different varieties. We're gonna be using one of these smaller sizes. The bigger ones won't be able to fit too well. I also grabbed this cheap little flashlight. It didn't even work when I bought it. That's okay, because all we want is the push button on the inside of the flashlight, and we're gonna be taking that out. If you have a good way to buy those buttons individually, that works too. This just happened to be at the store where I already was. And then I also have a couple of varieties of wire. This is some insulated wire that I pulled out of some old Cat 5 cable. And this right here is a decorative copper wire. It has an enamel coating on it, and that enamel coating is actually non-conductive. You can scrape it away to get to a conductive portion of the wire. So this stuff works really well as enamel wire, which is also weirdly hard to find. Now, the reason we got additional batteries, even though the shocking pens do come with some, is that the batteries in the pens are really weak. These pens are not very expensive, and the batteries that come with them are pretty cheap. They die quickly, and I suspect that they don't have quite the voltage that they're supposed to in the first place. These batteries that I'm using are actually also fairly cheap, but they definitely seem to have more of a charge to them than the ones that come in the pen. Time to break into our shocking pen and look at the electronics inside. So this part just sort of twists off. Got some metallic insides that just kind of get shredded as we do that. This plastic portion up here we're going to use part of. This down here we're not going to be using, and they are glued together. So the easiest way to separate them, just to break through it. That's okay, because we didn't want this portion. We're just going to be using this top bit. So now this splits apart. We can see our insides. Here's what we need. There's this portion here, which has all of our connection points to the wires. I'm actually going to be taking my gloves off. The point of this thing is that it gives off an electric shock, and I want to be able to feel it to know that I have it set up right. If it's not working correctly, I need to know, and the easiest way to do that is just to touch the things and see if it's zapping me. So let's take a look at this thing, how it works. So if I am touching this spring, which is in contact with those batteries, and I touch this end as well, it starts buzzing me, and you've maybe heard my voice jump a couple of times when I touched it by accident and wasn't expecting it. It's not that it's super painful, it's just surprising when you're not ready for it. So as long as I'm in contact with this lead here and this lead here, it gives me a nice little buzz. We don't want it to be always on. We want to add a switch, a button on the outside, and that's why we have our tiny little flashlight here. This is why we got the flashlight, is for this tiny little switch. It doesn't click on and off the same way as some switches. It's just, if you're holding down the button, it's on, and that's exactly what we want. We only want the electricity of the wand to be connected while we're pressing the button. We are not going to be using the LED bulb, so we can just clip that off. There's our little button. We'll have this red wire here going to our button. We'll take the spring off and attach it up here. We'll have the wire on the other side of our button going back, touching the spring, and then a second wire coming off of that, going up through our wand. Those two will run all the way up to the tip of the wand, and that's what we're going to use as our shocking point. We've got a couple of these pieces of the plastic case that were inside of the pen, and we actually do want to use those. We just need to trim them down a little bit so they're the right size. Now these two, the little pegs at the bottom, hold this all together. It's very nice and compact. That's something we can fit inside the handle of the wand. One of the trickiest things about this whole setup is how small we need to get everything. We really need to compact it down quite a bit. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of wire bending on these pieces right here to make everything fit a little bit nicer. So before, this little plastic plate was facing straight up. I've bent it back and then over again so you can see that the wires here are doubled around. That's just gonna keep everything a little bit shorter, and that will make it so we can fit it inside the handle of our wand. Our springs and our battery are in place, so now we're just gonna take this cover and throw it back on. That'll stop our batteries from popping out like they like to do. All right, this part's prepped. Let's set that aside for a few minutes. Get started on the wand itself. Right here I have a 1/2 inch dowel, and we need to run wires through a portion of this. We're gonna cut it off so it's about that long. We're gonna cut it in half lengthwise first though. We want to be able to run wires on the inside of this dowel and carve out a channel and then glue it together around the wires. Now we need to split it the long way, and to do that we're going to use a bandsaw. Now we want to choose a length. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to cut that off right about here. Because we used a bandsaw, these two pieces fit really nicely together. However, it does leave a little bit of tooth mark on the inside. So we're just going to take some sandpaper and try and smooth that out a bit. Now we want to cut a channel all the way down the length of the whole thing. And we can cut into one side or both sides, either way works. This split actually ended up being quite even, and so I think we're just going to cut a little bit of a groove into both of those. There's lots of ways you could cut this groove. You could use just a razor blade and a steady hand. I'm going to try using a rotary tool. I think it will be a little bit quicker and easier. What we need is a channel that's just big enough for some of this wire, 2 strands of it, and they come with 2 strands twisted together, so that's just what we like. It's to be able to fit down through the channel of the wand. There's enough space that we can glue them together and have the sides of the wood meeting up. There's one other change we're going to do. You can see that I didn't take the channel all the way to the end of the wood. And that's because we don't just want a big open channel there. We're going to add 2 more smaller channels coming off of that, and a little bit of the wire with the coating stripped off is what's going to stick out from the top of those. Okay, we've got our 2 lead wires. However, these are just a little bit too stabby. We don't want to be injuring people. We're going to be shocking them, but it's a light shock that's not supposed to really hurt. So what we're going to do to round these out is we're going to add a little drop of solder onto the tip of each one. Now we need to glue this wire inside that channel. That should be plenty of clamps. While that glue is drying, let's work on some of the internal portions of our wand. We've got the basic housing and battery setup, and that's all going to fit inside of our handle. So now we need to go about making that handle. We're actually going to drill a hole lengthwise down into the dowel, and it's going to be just large enough to fit our electronics inside, as well as working as a connection point between the handle and the shaft of the wand. With the hole drilled out into the larger dowel piece, we can see that everything can now fit down inside, and that's exactly what we're going to need. We do want to do a little bit of decorative work on the handle, and we're actually going to do that right now because it's going to end up thinning out parts at the top, and we just want to make sure that we have everything all complete and lined up just right. It's going to be a little bit easier if we do this part first rather than after. All right, there's some decoration put on the handle. I've seen some other people do some interesting stuff making their own Harry Potter wand handles where they use things like hot glue or melted wax to add some other texture onto those. If that's something you like doing, by all means, you should go ahead and do that. For this one, I'm just going to use some sanding, give it a little bit of shape and texture down at the bottom. You can see I didn't do too much at the top. That's because the walls up at the top where I've drilled it out are fairly thin. I didn't want to risk cracking or sanding through the edges there. So the top part is mostly untouched, and I did quite a bit more texture down at the bottom. Wingardium Leviosa, which is not going to work because the wand's not done yet. Time to do a little bit more soldering. Our button is going to go on the outside of the wand. So we need to add some access points for the wires to go through the side of the handle. We're now using our smallest drill bit. The glue has had plenty of time to dry. Now we need to shape this a little bit more. Right now it's just shaped like a dowel. That's not very exciting. So back to the belt sander. We're gonna take some of these sides down, make it a little more tapered. There we go. As I was tapering it, I decided I kind of wanted it to match to the handle a little bit, and I gave it a little bit of a spiral cut to it. Kind of makes it look like a unicorn horn or something. Okay, so now we need to have one of these two wires attaches to the spring, and the other one of those wires attaches to this green piece of wire here. So let's clip everything shorter and do some more soldering. All right, I gotta try something. It's not gonna feel good. That like causes a muscle in here to just completely seize all at once. Okay, last thing I wanna do is just add a bit of finishing color to this so it doesn't just look like plain pine. So we're at least gonna make it look a little bit snazzier. The wand is complete and I have some volunteers. I volunteered them to participate in me testing this out. Josh, how do you feel about that?
I feel great.
Yeah?
I feel like a victim.
Don't worry, you can shock me with it too. So, it's pretty simple. There's a button and then these two leads have to make contact with the skin.
Ooh, that's a little bit of a tingle.
And it depends, it changes a lot depending on where on your skin it is.
Yeah.
So I've had lots of times where it just like buzzes a little bit, and then I've had times where I feel it running all the way up through my fingers.
If I put it right here on my arm, I can actually feel it buzzing.
Yeah, that's
it's
what I was
nothing
saying.
crazy like a taser or a stun gun.
Exactly. I didn't want something that was gonna like injure people. It's completely involuntary, isn't it?
Makes all the muscles contract.
Right, let's go for right here is a good one on me. I'm gonna try one finger on and then touch the other side with my tongue. I can feel it in my finger and my tongue. I don't feel it traveling the path between them.
Right,
but I have done it on my tongue
Touch one
alone.
side on your tongue and the other side on Josh's tongue. What?
No. We're not gonna try that.
Just kidding, that was funny.
The trick of this is really engineering everything to be small enough to fit inside the handle. But it works, and you can wave it around and do magic spells. Wingardium Leviosa.
It's Leviosa.
Wingardium Leviosa. Made the camera float away. I'm a very talented wizard. Guys, that's not all. We've always got more for you to see. That box up at the top is going to take you directly to our last video. You should go check that out. The other box is going to show you what YouTube thinks you should be watching next. And if you hit this bomb here in the middle, you'll be subscribed to our channel so you never miss out on a video. Don't forget to ring that bell, and we will see you in the next one. Talk to you then.